My daughter wrote, "Don't come when I give birth. My husband hates you. I changed my will and when I read those words on my phone screen, I felt something inside me crack, not break, crack, like ice before it shatters. My daughter, my only child, the girl I had raised alone after her father died, the woman I had sacrificed everything for, was telling me I wasn't welcome at the birth of my first grandchild. But she didn't know that I had been keeping careful records, and those records would change everything. Good day, dear listeners. It's Isabella again. I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end, and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. Today's story comes from a woman named Eleanor, and when she first wrote to me, her hands were still shaking, but by the end of her letter, I could feel her strength returning. This is her story. My name is Eleanor Whitfield, and I am 72 years old. I live in a small colonial-style house in Savannah, Georgia, the kind of house with a wraparound porch and azaleas that bloom pink every spring. My late husband, Harold, planted those azaleas the year we got married. That was 47 years ago. Harold passed away 8 years ago from pancreatic cancer. The diagnosis came in September, and by January, he was gone. 4 months. That's all we had between the words, "I'm sorry, it's aggressive," and the moment I held his hand for the last time. Harold was a mechanical engineer for a manufacturing company. Steady work, good benefits. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We raised our daughter, Melissa, in this house. She took her first steps in the living room, learned to ride a bike in the driveway, brought her prom date through the front door while Harold pretended to clean his hunting rifle. We gave her everything we could. Private school, when the public schools started struggling. Dance lessons, piano lessons. 4 years at the University of Georgia. A wedding that cost us $32,000. Harold always said, "We're not raising a child, we're raising an adult." He believed in hard work, in gratitude, in family loyalty. He would sit in his leather recliner by the window every evening, reading his newspaper, and Melissa would curl up next to him with her homework. That recliner is still there. I can't bring myself to move it. Sometimes I sit in it just to feel close to him. After Harold died, I thought Melissa and I would grow closer. She was all I had left. And for a while, we did. She called me every Sunday. She visited for holidays. She helped me sort through Harold's things, crying with me when we found his old love letters in a shoebox. I thought we would stay that way forever. I was wrong. Melissa met Derek Patterson in 2019. She was 34, working as an office manager for a dental practice. Derek was a sales representative for a medical supply company. He was charming, confident. He had one of those smiles that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. The first time I met him, he brought me flowers, yellow roses. He said, "Mrs. Whitfield, Melissa talks about you all the time. I can see where she gets her grace." I should have noticed that the compliment felt rehearsed. I should have noticed the way his eyes scanned my living room, lingering on the antique grandfather clock, the oil painting above the fireplace, the silver tea set that had belonged to my mother. But I was lonely. I was hopeful. I wanted my daughter to be happy. They got engaged after 6 months. I offered to help pay for the wedding, of course. What mother wouldn't? The total came to $28,000. I wrote the check without hesitation. Harold had left me comfortable. Our savings, his pension, the life insurance. I had enough. And seeing Melissa walk down the aisle, her face glowing, I thought it was worth every penny. The trouble started small. In March of 2021, Melissa called me on a Tuesday evening. Her voice had that careful tone people use when they're about to ask for something. "Mom, I hate to ask, but Derek's car broke down, the transmission. It's going to cost $5,000 to fix, and we're a little tight right now." "Of course, sweetheart," I said. "I'll transfer it tomorrow." She thanked me profusely. Derek got on the phone and said, "Eleanor, you're a lifesaver. We'll pay you back as soon as Derek's commission comes through." I told him not to worry about it. Family helps family. That's what Harold always said. 3 months later, in June, another call. "Mom, it's the air conditioning. The whole unit needs to be replaced. They're quoting us $8,200. I know it's a lot, but it's the middle of summer, and Derek has really bad allergies." I hesitated for the first time, but then I thought about my daughter sweating in her own home, about Derek sneezing and miserable. I transferred the money. In October, it was the roof. "Storm damage, Mom. Insurance won't cover all of it. We need $15,000. In February of 2022, it was medical bills. Derek hurt his back. The physical therapy isn't covered. $12,000. In July, it was credit card debt. "We got in over our heads, Mom. Just this once. $22,000, and we'll finally be debt-free." Each time, I believed them. Each time, I told myself this would be the last time. Each time, I quietly adjusted my own budget. I canceled the trip to Charleston I had planned with my friend Rose. I postponed my dental implants, making do with a partial denture that didn't fit quite right. I started buying generic groceries, clipping coupons, turning the thermostat down in winter and up in summer. By December of 2022, I had given Melissa and Derek a total of $62,200. I kept a small notebook where I wrote down each amount, each date, each reason. Not because I expected to be paid back, but because some part of me, some quiet voice in the back of my mind, wanted to remember. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself a mother shouldn't keep receipts on her own daughter. I was wrong about that too. The phone calls became less frequent. By the spring of 2023, Melissa had stopped calling on Sundays. When I called her, she was always busy. "Can't talk now, Mom. Derek and I are heading out." "Sorry, Mom. I'm exhausted. Long week. I'll call you back, Mom." She never did. On June 15th, 2023, Melissa finally called with news that should have made my heart soar. "Mom, I'm pregnant." I burst into tears of joy. A grandchild. After everything, after the loneliness and the grief and the empty house, I was going to have a grandchild. "Oh, sweetheart," I said. "That's wonderful. When are you due? I want to be there. I want to help. I'll come and stay for a few weeks, cook meals, help with the baby." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Too long, too quiet. "We'll talk about that later, Mom. I have to go." The weeks that followed were strange. When I asked about the pregnancy, Melissa gave short answers. When I offered to buy things for the nursery, she said, "Derek's mom is handling it." When I suggested we go to lunch to celebrate, she said she was too tired. On August 3rd, I called to ask about the baby shower. Melissa sighed heavily. "Mom, I wasn't going to tell you this way, but the shower was last weekend." I felt like I had been punched. "What? Melissa, why didn't you invite me?" Another pause. "It was small. Just close friends. Derek thought it would be easier." "Easier for who?" "Mom, please don't make this a thing." But it was a thing. It was the biggest thing. My only daughter had excluded me from her baby shower. The baby shower for my only grandchild. And it wasn't her decision. It was Derek's. I should have confronted her then. I should have demanded answers. But I was afraid that if I pushed too hard, I would lose her entirely. So I swallowed my hurt and told myself it didn't matter. The birth would be different. She would need me when the baby came. On December 4th, 2023, at 9:17 in the morning, my phone buzzed with a text message. I was in the kitchen, making tea, Harold's old mug warm in my hands. I set it down and picked up the phone. The message was from Melissa, 2 sentences, 14 words. They are burned into my memory forever. "Don't come when I give birth. My husband hates you and doesn't want you there." I read it 3 times. My hands started to shake. The phone slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the counter. I braced myself against the edge of the sink and stared out the window at Harold's azaleas, bare and gray in the December cold. Something cold settled in my chest. Not sadness, not yet. Something sharper, clearer, like a door closing inside me. I picked up the phone and typed a response. "May I ask why Derek hates me?" Her reply came 3 minutes later. "You're always interfering. You call too much. You make everything about you. Derek says you're manipulative and controlling. We need space. Don't contact us for a while." Manipulative? Controlling? The words echoed in my head. I had given them $62,000. I had sacrificed my own comfort for their emergencies. I had asked for nothing in return except to be part of my daughter's life. And now I was manipulative. I sat down at the kitchen table. I sat there for 2 hours. The tea went cold. The winter sun moved across the floor. And slowly, very slowly, the fog of hurt began to lift, replaced by something harder, something that felt like clarity. That evening, I pulled out the small notebook where I had recorded every payment. I spread the pages across the dining room table. $62,200, $5,000 for the car, $8,200 for the air conditioning, $15,000 for the roof, $12,000 for medical bills, $22,000 for credit card debt. I opened my laptop and logged into Facebook. I rarely used it, but Melissa posted there regularly. I scrolled back through her photos from the past 2 years. What I found made me dizzy. In April of 2021, 1 month after I paid for Derek's car repair, there were photos of them on a beach in Cancun. "Anniversary trip," the caption read. "Derek surprised me." In August of 2021, 2 months after I paid for the air conditioning, there were photos of a brand new outdoor kitchen in their backyard. Stainless steel grill, built-in refrigerator, stone countertops. Summer upgrade complete. In November of 2021, photos of Melissa with shopping bags from Louis Vuitton and Nordstrom. Retail therapy with my love. In March of 2022, 1 month after I paid for Derek's physical therapy, there were photos of them at a ski resort in Colorado. Learning to ski at 40, better late than never. Every time I had given them money for an emergency, they had been spending money on luxuries. The emergencies were lies, all of them. My hands trembled as I scrolled. I felt sick. I felt stupid. I felt angry. I closed the laptop and sat in Harold's recliner. I looked at the photo on the mantel, the one from our 30th anniversary. Harold with his arm around me, both of us laughing at some joke I can't remember now. "What do I do, Harold?" I whispered. "What would you do?" I already knew the answer. The next morning, December 5th, at 8:45 a.m., I called my attorney. Her name was Barbara Hendricks. She had handled Harold's estate, drawn up my will, been my trusted advisor for over a decade. She was in her late 50s, with silver-streaked hair she wore in a neat bun and reading glasses she kept on a chain around her neck. When I told her I needed to meet as soon as possible, she cleared her afternoon. At 2 p.m., I sat across from Barbara in her office on Drayton Street. I'd brought the notebook, the bank statements, and printed screenshots of Melissa's Facebook posts. Barbara studied the documents for a long time. Her expression grew more serious with each page. "Eleanor," she finally said, removing her glasses, "this is textbook financial exploitation of an elder. Under Georgia law, this could be prosecuted as a criminal offense." "Criminal?" I asked. "They obtain money from you through deception. Fraud. The amounts are substantial. You could file a police report. You could pursue civil litigation to recover the funds." She paused. "But there's something else you should consider. Your will." I nodded. My current will left everything to Melissa. The house, the investments, Harold's pension, my mother's silver tea set, everything. "I want to change it," I said. All of it. Barbara nodded slowly. Do you have other beneficiaries in mind? I thought about my younger brother's children, my niece Hannah and my nephew Thomas, both hardworking and kind. I thought about the Savannah Humane Society, where I had volunteered after Harold died. I thought about the scholarship fund at the University of Georgia that had helped a young woman from my church attend nursing school. Yes, I said, I have several. Barbara pulled out a fresh legal pad. Let's get started. Over the next 2 hours, we restructured my entire estate. The house would go to my niece, Hannah, who had always loved the azaleas and the wraparound porch. A generous donation would go to the Humane Society. The scholarship fund would receive enough to help 3 students through nursing school. The remaining investments would be split between Hannah and Thomas. Melissa would receive exactly $1. Enough to prove I hadn't forgotten her. Enough to prove the exclusion was intentional. There's one more thing, I said. I want to document why. I want a letter attached to the will that explains everything, every lie, every dollar, the message telling me to stay away from my grandchild's birth. Barbara nodded. A testamentary letter. It's not legally binding, but it becomes part of the record. Anyone who contests the will would have to confront the evidence. Good, I said. I want them to confront it. When I left Barbara's office that afternoon, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Not happiness exactly, but power. Control over my own life. The story might have ended there, with a quiet change to a legal document. But Melissa didn't let it end there. On January 8th, 2024, my phone rang at 7:32 p.m. The caller ID showed Melissa's number. I considered not answering, but some part of me, some stubborn maternal instinct, couldn't ignore it. Mom, her voice was cold. We need to talk about money. What about it? Derek and I are having some cash flow issues. The baby is expensive. We need $40,000. I almost laughed. The audacity, the sheer, breathtaking audacity. No, I said. Silence on the other end. Then, excuse me? I said no. I'm not giving you any more money. Mom, this isn't a request. We need this. Derek says you owe us. I owe you? Melissa, I have given you and Derek over $60,000 in the past 3 years. I have your vacations on Facebook, your ski trips, your Louis Vuitton bags. You told me it was for emergencies. You lied to me. More silence. When Melissa spoke again, her voice had changed, harder, meaner. You've been spying on us? I've been paying attention. There's a difference. You're insane. You know that? Derek was right about you. You're a bitter, jealous old woman who can't stand to see anyone happy. The words stung, but I refused to let her hear it. I'm not giving you any more money, Melissa, and you should know that I've changed my will. The silence that followed was so complete, I thought she had hung up. What did you just say? I've changed my will. You're no longer my beneficiary. The house, the investments, everything. It's going elsewhere. You can't do that. I already have. We'll contest it. We'll have you declared incompetent. Derek knows a lawyer. We'll prove you've lost your mind. Go ahead and try. My attorney has documented everything, every lie, every fraudulent request for money, every Facebook post proving you were never in financial distress. A judge will find it very interesting reading. I could hear her breathing, fast and shallow. You'll regret this, Mom. You'll die alone. Is that what you want? What I want, I said, is peace. Goodbye, Melissa. I hung up the phone. Then I sat down in Harold's recliner and cried. The next 3 months were the hardest of my life. Harder than Harold's death, in some ways. At least with Harold, I had memories of love. With Melissa, I had memories of betrayal. In February, Melissa's baby was born. I learned about it from a Facebook post, shared by a friend of a friend, a little girl, 7 pounds, 4 ounces. They named her Autumn. I looked at the photos for a long time. My granddaughter, my only grandchild, a stranger to me. In March, Derek began calling me, not to apologize, to threaten. Mrs. Whitfield, I think you're making a mistake. His voice was smooth, confident, the voice of a man who was used to getting what he wanted. Family shouldn't fight like this. Why don't we meet and talk things over? There's nothing to talk about. I think there is. See, I've been doing some research. Georgia has filial responsibility laws. Children can be required to support their elderly parents, but the reverse is also true in a way. Courts look very unfavorably on parents who abandon their children financially. I haven't abandoned anyone. I've simply stopped allowing myself to be exploited. That's not how a judge would see it, especially if we can prove that you're not mentally competent. My buddy says we have a real case here. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I kept my voice steady. Is that a threat, Derek? It's a reality check. Change the will back, Eleanor. Make this easy on everyone. No, you'll be sorry. I already am. I'm sorry I ever met you. I hung up and immediately called Barbara Hendricks. She listened to everything without interrupting. They're bluffing, she said. Georgia's filial responsibility laws are rarely enforced, and they apply to adult children supporting indigent parents, not the other way around. And a competency challenge would require medical evidence of cognitive decline. Do you have any such decline? I beat you at Scrabble last month. Barbara laughed. I remember. Then you have nothing to worry about. But I want you to start documenting every contact from Derek or Melissa. Save every voicemail, screenshot every text. If they escalate, we may need to pursue a restraining order. They escalated. On April 3rd, 2024, at 4:15 in the afternoon, I heard a car door slam in my driveway. I looked out the window and saw Derek's black SUV. He was walking toward my front porch, his face set in an expression of cold determination. I didn't open the door. I watched through the peephole as he knocked 3 times. Eleanor, I know you're home. We need to talk. I said nothing. He knocked again, harder. Eleanor, open the door. This is ridiculous. I picked up my phone and dialed 911. I spoke quietly but clearly. This is Eleanor Whitfield at 2847 Ardsley Park Drive. There's a man on my porch refusing to leave. I've asked him not to contact me. I feel threatened. Derek heard me through the door. His expression changed. Are you calling the police? Are you seriously calling the police on your own family? You're not my family anymore, Derek. Leave now, or wait for the officers to escort you. He stood there for a long moment. I could see the calculations running through his head. Finally, he turned and walked back to his SUV. Before he got in, he looked back at my window. This isn't over, Eleanor. The police arrived 12 minutes later. I gave them a full statement. Officer Patricia Coleman, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, took careful notes. Mrs. Whitfield, do you have documentation of previous harassment? I showed her my phone. 23 text messages from Derek and Melissa over the past month. Threats, insults, demands. One message from Derek read, "You're going to die alone and miserable, and we won't even come to your funeral." Officer Coleman's expression hardened as she read, "This is harassment. You can file for a protective order. I'd recommend you do so." The next morning, I was at the courthouse. Judge Helen Merriweather, a stern-faced woman in her 60s with steel-gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses, reviewed my petition. Mrs. Whitfield, I've reviewed the evidence you've submitted, the text messages, the documentation of the financial exploitation, the report from yesterday's incident. I'm granting a temporary protective order against Derek Patterson and Melissa Patterson. They are not to contact you directly or indirectly, approach within 500 feet of your residence, or communicate with you through third parties. Violation of this order will result in arrest. I walked out of the courthouse into the April sunshine. I felt lighter than I had in months. But the legal battle was just beginning. In late April, I received a letter from an attorney named Gerald Fisher. He represented Derek and Melissa Patterson. The letter was full of legal jargon, but the meaning was clear. They were challenging my competency and demanding that the courts appoint a guardian to manage my finances. Barbara Hendricks was not amused. This is a desperation tactic. They're hoping to intimidate you into settling. We'll respond with everything we have. And we did. Barbara filed a countersuit on May 15th, 2024. We alleged financial exploitation of an elder, fraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We provided detailed documentation of every dollar I had given Melissa and Derek, every lie they had told, every Facebook post proving their deception. We demanded full restitution of the $62,200 plus punitive damages. Gerald Fisher's response was to request a delay, then another delay, then another. He was stalling, hoping I would run out of patience or money. But Barbara had taken my case on a contingency basis. She believed in me, and I had nothing but time. The hearing was scheduled for September 9th, 2024, 3 days before my 73rd birthday. I barely slept the night before. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Harold, thinking about Melissa as a child, the way she used to run to me when she was scared, the way she used to say, "I love you, Mommy," before bed every night. Where had that child gone? How had she become this cold, calculating stranger? The morning of the hearing, I put on my navy blue dress, the one Harold had always loved. I pinned my grandmother's cameo brooch at my collar. I looked in the mirror and saw an old woman, tired and sad but unbroken. The Chatham County Courthouse was an imposing building of white stone and tall windows. Barbara Hendricks met me at the entrance, her briefcase full of evidence. "Ready?" she asked. "As I'll ever be." The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Catherine Chen presided, a petite woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and an air of quiet authority. Derek and Melissa sat at the defendant's table with Gerald Fisher. Melissa was thinner than I remembered. She didn't look at me. Derek stared at me with undisguised contempt. Barbara presented our case first. She was methodical, relentless. She showed the bank records documenting every transfer. She showed Melissa's text messages requesting money for emergencies. Then she showed the Facebook posts, the Cancun vacation, the outdoor kitchen, the ski trip, the designer shopping bags. "Your Honor," Barbara said, "the evidence is clear. The defendants obtained over $62,000 from Mrs. Whitfield through deliberate deception. They fabricated emergencies to exploit her love and generosity. And when she stopped giving, they attempted to have her declared incompetent. This is textbook elder abuse." Gerald Fisher's defense was weak. He argued that the money was a gift, that Mrs. Whitfield had given it freely. He tried to paint me as a controlling mother who was punishing her daughter for growing up. Then Barbara called me to the stand. "Mrs. Whitfield, can you describe your relationship with your daughter before 2021? I took a breath. We were close. After my husband died, Melissa was all I had. We talked every Sunday, and she visited for holidays. I thought we were friends. And what changed? She met Derek, and little by little, she started pulling away. The calls became less frequent, the visits stopped, and then the requests for money started. Did you believe these were genuine emergencies? Yes. Why would I doubt my own daughter? When she said Derek's car needed repair, I believed her. When she said the roof was damaged, I believed her. I gave her everything she asked for because I loved her." "And what did you discover?" I looked at the Facebook photos displayed on the courtroom screen. I discovered that while I was eating generic groceries and postponing dental work, my daughter was vacationing in Cancun. While I was clipping coupons to make ends meet, she was building an outdoor kitchen. Every emergency was a lie. Every dollar I gave in good faith was stolen. How did it make you feel? I paused, like a fool, and then, like something worse, like I never really knew my own daughter at all. Gerald Fisher's cross-examination was aggressive but ineffective. He tried to suggest I was confused, forgetful, that the gifts had been given with no expectation of repayment. But I had my notebook. I had dates and amounts and reasons, all in my own handwriting. Mr. Fisher, Judge Chen interrupted, this line of questioning is not productive. The documentary evidence is extensive and clear. Please move on. Derek was called to testify. He tried to be charming, but under Barbara's questioning, his story fell apart. He couldn't explain the timing of the vacations. He couldn't explain the outdoor kitchen. He couldn't look me in the eye. Melissa was called last. She sat in the witness chair looking small and pale. For a moment, I felt a pang of something that might have been pity. Mrs. Patterson, Barbara said, on December 4th, 2023, you sent your mother a text message telling her not to come to the birth of your child because your husband hated her. Is that correct? Melissa's voice was barely audible. Yes. And on January 8th, 2024, you called her and demanded $40,000. When she refused, you threatened to have her declared incompetent. Is that also correct? Melissa looked at Derek. He gave her a sharp nod. I was under a lot of stress. The baby, the finances. I didn't mean it. Did you mean it when you called her a bitter, jealous old woman? Did you mean it when you told her she would die alone? Melissa's eyes filled with tears. Mom, I don't know what happened. Derek said he told me. Mrs. Patterson, Judge Chen interrupted, please answer the question. Melissa crumbled. Yes, I said those things. I said all of it. The courtroom was silent. Judge Chen took a long moment before speaking. Her voice was calm, but carried the weight of absolute authority. I have reviewed all the evidence in this case. The documentation provided by the plaintiff is thorough and credible. The defendants obtained $62,200 from Mrs. Whitfield through deliberate and systematic fraud. They exploited her maternal love and trust for their own financial gain. And when she refused to continue being exploited, they attempted to have her stripped of her legal autonomy. This is not a gray area. This is elder abuse, plain and simple. She turned to Derek and Melissa. I am ordering full restitution of $62,200 to be paid to Mrs. Whitfield within 90 days. Additionally, I am awarding punitive damages of $35,000 for the emotional distress and harassment she has endured. The protective order against both defendants will remain in effect for 5 years. Any violation will result in immediate arrest and prosecution. Derek's face went pale. Melissa began to cry quietly. Furthermore, Judge Chen continued, I am referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for potential criminal prosecution under Georgia's elder abuse statutes. This court takes the exploitation of vulnerable adults very seriously. She struck her gavel. Court is adjourned. I walked out of the courthouse into the September sunshine. Barbara put her arm around my shoulders. You did it, Eleanor. We did it, I said. The aftermath unfolded over the following months, and I took no pleasure in watching it. But I did watch. I needed to see that justice had been served. Derek and Melissa couldn't pay the judgment. They had spent everything, every dollar I had given them, every dollar of their own income. They had been living far beyond their means, propped up by my generosity. They were forced to sell their house, the beautiful house with the outdoor kitchen and the new roof I had supposedly paid for. It sold for less than they owed on the mortgage. They moved into a small apartment on the outskirts of Savannah. Derek's employer learned about the case. It was public record, after all. A medical supply company didn't want a salesman with a fraud conviction on their team. He was quietly let go in November. By January of 2025, Melissa filed for divorce. I heard about it through my niece, Hannah, who had kept in touch with some of Melissa's old friends. Apparently, Derek had been having an affair with a woman from his gym. The marriage had been crumbling for years. My money had been the only thing holding it together. The criminal case moved forward. In March of 2025, Derek pleaded guilty to 1 count of financial exploitation of an elder. He was sentenced to 3 years of probation and 200 hours of community service. Melissa, as a cooperating witness, received a lighter sentence of 1 year of probation. But the greatest consequence for Melissa was something no court could impose. Her friends learned what she had done. Her colleagues learned. Her social media presence, once so vibrant and boastful, went silent. The woman who had posted pictures of designer bags and luxury vacations had nothing left to show. I saw her once, 6 months after the trial. I was in the produce section of the Kroger on Abercorn Street picking out tomatoes for a salad. I looked up and there she was, standing by the apples, pushing a cart with little Autumn sitting in the seat. Our eyes met across the display. Melissa looked thinner than before, tired. The expensive highlights were gone from her hair. She was wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then Melissa pushed her cart toward me. She stopped a few feet away, respecting the distance the protective order required. "Mom," she said quietly, I'm sorry." I looked at my granddaughter. Autumn was about 16 months old now, with wispy brown hair and curious brown eyes. She had my mother's nose, Harold's chin. "I know you are," I said. "I was wrong about everything. Derek, he manipulated me. He convinced me that you were the enemy. But you weren't. You never were." I felt the old sadness rise up, but it was muted now, distant, like a memory of pain rather than the pain itself. "You made your choices, Melissa. You sent those messages. You spoke those words. Derek may have influenced you, but you were a grown woman. You knew what you were doing." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I know. I wanted you to know that I'm trying to change, to be better, for Autumn." I looked at my granddaughter again. She smiled at me, a sweet, innocent smile that knew nothing of betrayal or courtrooms or broken families. "That's good," I said. "Be better for her." I turned and walked away. I didn't look back. The protective order expired eventually, but Melissa never asked to see me again. I think she understood that some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. Some trust, once broken, cannot be repaired. I focused on my own life, on healing, on finding joy in the time I had left. I used part of the settlement money to renovate Harold's garden. I hired a landscaper to restore the azaleas to their former glory. I added a small gazebo where I could sit in the evenings and watch the sunset. I traveled. For the first time in decades, I went places. I took a cruise through Alaska with my friend Rose, watching glaciers calve into the sea. I visit my niece Hannah in Portland, Oregon, where she had moved with her husband and children. I held her little boy, my great-nephew, and felt something I thought I had lost forever: hope. I volunteered at the Savannah Senior Center, teaching financial literacy classes to older adults. I told my story, anonymously at first, then with my own name attached. Other women came to me with similar stories: daughters who had drained their bank accounts, sons who had forged their signatures. I helped them find resources, attorneys, support groups. I helped them find their voices. On my 74th birthday, I hosted a party in my backyard, under the gazebo, surrounded by Harold's azaleas in full bloom. Rose was there, and Hannah, and Thomas, and a dozen friends from church and the senior center. We ate cake and drank champagne, and when the sun went down, we watched fireflies dance among the flowers. "You know what, Eleanor?" Rose said, squeezing my hand. "You look 10 years younger." I laughed. "I feel 10 years younger. I feel free." And I did. For the first time since Harold died, I felt truly free. Last week, I received a letter in the mail. The return address was unfamiliar: a P.O. box in Macon, Georgia. Inside was a single sheet of paper, written in a handwriting I didn't recognize at first. "Dear Mrs. Whitfield, my name is Autumn. My mother says you're my grandmother. She says you helped me once, even though I don't remember. I'm almost 4 years old now. I can write my own name. I wanted to say thank you for the birthday present. The teddy bear is my favorite. Love, Autumn. I hadn't sent a birthday present, but someone had, and they had signed my name. I held the letter for a long time, looking at the shaky letters, the careful signature. Then I put it in my desk drawer, next to Harold's old love letters. Some wounds never fully heal, but some connections, even across great distances, persist. My granddaughter knew my name. That was something. That was enough. Looking back on everything that happened, I have learned 3 truths that I will carry with me for the rest of my days. First, love is not a license for exploitation. You can love someone with all your heart and still refuse to let them take advantage of you. Boundaries are not the opposite of love. They are its necessary companion. Second, documentation is protection. Keep records. Keep receipts. Keep screenshots. The world is full of people who will lie about what happened. Your records will tell the truth when they won't. Third, it is never too late to fight back. I was 72 years old when I discovered my daughter's betrayal. I could have surrendered. I could have told myself I was too old, too tired, too heartbroken. Instead, I chose to stand up, and standing up saved my life. So I ask you, if family betrayed you, would you fight back? What would you do? Would you have the courage to change your will, to call a lawyer, to walk into a courtroom and demand justice? Or would you let them take everything and tell yourself it was easier that way? Share your thoughts below and subscribe for more stories. I want to hear from you. I want to know that my story has traveled far and touched hearts along the way. Remember, you are never alone in your struggles. There is always someone who has walked this path before you,